Breadcrumbing is not about your lack of worth. It's about someone else's lack of capacity. And the more we understand it, the sooner we can stop waiting for people who are never really planning to arrive. Breadcrumbing thrives on intermittent reinforcement. Psychologists tell us that the most addictive behavior patterns are built not on what's consistent, but on what's unpredictable. Think about a slot machine. If you pulled the lever and lost every single time, you'd walk away. If you pulled it and won every single time, it would be exciting for a while, but eventually you'd lose interest because certainty doesn't create obsession. What hooks us, what keeps us pulling that lever again and again, is the uncertainty, the not knowing, the maybe. Breadcrumbing works in the same way. You're not getting steady love, attention, or presence. You're getting just enough to keep you invested. A message after days of silence, a sudden burst of warmth after weeks of indifference, a promise they never fully deliver on, and your brain, wired for connection and reward, starts firing off dopamine like fireworks, not because this is real intimacy, but because it feels like the possibility of intimacy. And possibility can be intoxicating when you're hungry for connection. The danger is when you get those little crumbs, they light up the same reward centers in your brain as genuine love and care would. It tricks you into thinking, see, they do care. They are trying. But that's not care, it's conditioning. And conditioning is powerful. If you've ever seen someone train a dog with treats, you know what I mean. The dog will sit, roll over, do whatever it takes just in case this is the moment the treat comes. And the sad truth is, when we're caught in breadcrumbing, we're the ones sitting, waiting, performing, hoping this is the moment the love arrives. Here's the hardest part to admit. Sometimes we know deep down that it's not enough, that this isn't healthy or sustainable. But the hope created by those crumbs is stronger than the reality of their absence. That's what intermittent reinforcement does. It overrides logic with longing. It convinces us to trade dignity for a handful of maybes. And it whispers, if you just hold on a little longer, this will turn into the real thing. I want to pause here and name something important. Falling into this pattern doesn't mean you're weak or foolish or broken. It means you're human. It means your brain and your heart are working exactly the way they're wired to work. We are creatures of connection. We crave it. We're built for it. So of course, when someone offers us the possibility of love, even a shaky, inconsistent possibility, we hold on. That doesn't make you desperate. It makes you human. But here's the truth we have to carry with us. Breadcrumbing isn't love. Love doesn't ask you to chase it, decode it, or wonder if you're worthy of it. Love shows up. Love is steady, not sporadic. And once you see breadcrumbing for what it really is, a slot machine of empty promises, you begin to reclaim your power. You begin to step off the hamster wheel of waiting and recognize that consistency is not too much to ask. It's the bare minimum. And when you know that, you stop mistaking unpredictability for passion and you start demanding the kind of connection that doesn't come in crumbs, but in whole, nourishing human love. Hope becomes a trap when it's detached from reality. Hope in its truest form is one of the most powerful forces we have as human beings. It's what allows us to endure pain, to keep going when life feels unbearable, to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Hope is essential. But hope without honesty, hope that isn't anchored in truth, becomes something very different. It stops being life-giving and starts being life-draining. When we're caught in breadcrumbing, this is exactly what happens. We hold on to hope that this person will change, that one day they'll wake up and finally see our worth, that all the little crumbs will eventually turn into a feast. And at first, that hope feels noble. It feels like loyalty, like patience, like love. But over time, it becomes a trap. It ties us to a story that isn't moving forward, and it keeps us waiting for someone else to do the work we cannot do for them. I remember reading research on hope that described it not as a warm, fuzzy emotion, but as a combination of goals, pathways, and agency. Real hope says, I can see a future that is better. I know there's a pathway to get there, and I believe I have the ability to walk that path. That's grounded hope. That's resilient hope. But notice, none of that depends on someone else changing. None of that depends on someone else finally delivering what they've withheld. The kind of hope we hold in breadcrumbing situations is different. It's fragile because it's outsourced. It's built entirely on someone else's choices. And here's the uncomfortable truth. We can't build our well-being on a foundation we don't control. If their actions are the only thing holding up your hope, then your hope is never safe. And yet, so many of us stay because letting go of hope feels like failure. It feels like giving up. But I want to reframe that. Letting go of false hope isn't failure, it's freedom. It's saying, I'm no longer willing to spend my precious life waiting on a possibility that isn't rooted in reality. That's not weakness. That's clarity. That's courage. The moment we start to see this clearly, the story begins to shift. We realize that real love doesn't need us to gamble on someday. Real love shows up in the now. And the more we practice anchoring our hope in truth rather than wishful thinking, the more we step into relationships where we don't just survive on scraps, we actually thrive. Breadcrumbing erodes self-worth in subtle ways. It rarely happens all at once. No one wakes up one day and says, you know what, I'm going to settle for crumbs. It happens slowly, almost invisibly. You start out knowing what you want, what you need, what you deserve. And then little by little, you begin to negotiate with yourself. You say things like, maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe this is all they're capable of. Maybe if I just wait, it'll be enough. The danger here is that breadcrumbing doesn't just leave us underfed in terms of connection. It teaches us to doubt our own hunger. It convinces us that the ache we feel for more love, more consistency, more presence is unreasonable. And when we start labeling our needs as too much, what we're really doing is chipping away at our own sense of worthiness. This erosion is quiet. It's not loud or dramatic. It's in the way you stop voicing your needs because you're afraid of being called needy. It's in the way you start celebrating the bare minimum, like a reply to a text message or a half-hearted apology, as if it's proof that your patience is finally paying off. And slowly, you start shrinking your expectations to match the size of the crumbs you're given. But here's the truth. Love doesn't require you to shrink. Healthy connection doesn't ask you to silence your needs. In fact, one of the clearest signs of love is the freedom to bring your full self to the table, your needs, your fears, your hopes, without shame. Breadcrumbing flips that upside down. It makes you believe that your worth is tied to how little you ask for, as if being low management is the price of keeping someone's affection. Research on self-worth shows us that when people consistently feel undervalued, they don't just lower their expectations of others, they lower their expectations of themselves. And that breaks my heart, because it means breadcrumbing doesn't just harm your relationships, it rewrites the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. But here's the shift we need to make. Your desire for consistent love and respect is not evidence of weakness. It's evidence of being human. Wanting more than crumbs isn't selfish. It's healthy. It's necessary. And the moment you recognize that truth, you start reclaiming your self-worth, piece by piece. You stop normalizing scarcity, and you begin to remember that you are worthy of love that shows up fully, not occasionally. Because at the end of the day, the question isn't, am I too much? The question is, why am I accepting so little? And once you start asking that, everything begins to change. Change can't be outsourced. This is one of the hardest truths to sit with, especially when your heart is invested in someone. Because when we love people, or even when we're just deeply attached to the possibility of them, we want to believe that if we're patient enough, supportive enough, forgiving enough, they'll eventually rise into the version of themselves we know they could be. We hang on to the image of their potential like it's a lifeline, and in the process, we outsource the entire responsibility for change to them while outsourcing our own happiness to the waiting. Here's what I've learned both in the research and in my own lived experiences. People don't change because we wait long enough, love hard enough, or sacrifice enough. They change when, and only when, they decide to. Change is deeply personal. It requires self-awareness, effort, and commitment. And no matter how badly we want it for someone else, we can't want it into existence. When we're caught in breadcrumbing, we often fall into this trap of thinking, if I just keep showing up, if I just prove I'm loyal, if I just give them one more chance, maybe this will finally be the moment they see my value and step up. But the problem is that puts your life on pause. It ties your growth and your joy to someone else's readiness. And that's a gamble that leaves you depleted because you're investing in potential instead of reality. I want to be clear here. Believing in people isn't the problem. Hope isn't the problem. What becomes the problem is when we confuse hope with control. When we believe our actions can somehow unlock their willingness to change, we carry a burden that was never ours to begin with. And that weight is exhausting. The reality is, if someone is breadcrumbing you, they're already showing you who they are right now, and who they are today matters more than who they might be one day, because relationships aren't lived in the someday, they're lived in the now. And yes, letting go of that hope can feel devastating. It feels like giving up on the story you've been holding on to, the story where they finally arrive and everything falls into place. But here's the reframe. You're not giving up on love. You're giving up on waiting. You're choosing to stop outsourcing your future to someone else's timeline. Because at the end of the day, you can't make anyone change, but you can change how long you're willing to wait for crumbs. You can change the boundaries you set. You can change the story you tell yourself about what you deserve. And those changes are the ones that set you free. Choosing courage over comfort means walking away from crumbs. There's nothing comfortable about breadcrumbing, but there is something familiar about it. And sometimes familiarity feels safer than the unknown. It feels easier to hold on to the crumbs you do have than to face the empty space that comes with letting go. That's what makes it so difficult. Walking away doesn't just mean leaving a person. It means stepping into uncertainty. It means asking yourself, what if I don't find the love I'm looking for? What if this is the best it gets? But here's what I know. Choosing comfort over courage almost always leads to regret. Comfort tells us, stay. Don't rock the boat. At least you're not alone. But courage says you deserve more than scraps. You deserve a love that shows up fully. And even if it's terrifying, walking away is an act of self-respect. The truth is, walking away from crumbs requires us to confront our deepest fears about worthiness. Because if we believe, even on some quiet level, that we're not enough, then crumbs can feel like confirmation. This is all I get. This is all I deserve. But when you begin to believe you're worthy of more, leaving becomes less about loss and more about alignment. You're not just leaving them, you're leaving behind a story that never fed you. I've seen this over and over in the research. People who set boundaries and choose to walk away often describe it later as one of the most courageous decisions of their lives. Not because it wasn't painful, but because it was a decision to honor their worth over their fear. And that's the definition of courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. When you stop following the trail of crumbs, you make space for something new. And that space might feel unbearable at first, but it's in that space that you rediscover yourself. You begin to realize that your life isn't supposed to be about waiting for someone to show up. It's about fully showing up for yourself. And when you live from that place of courage, you don't settle for crumbs anymore because you finally remembered you were always worthy of the whole table. So yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Courage never promises comfort. What it does promise is freedom. And the moment you choose courage over comfort, you stop surviving on crumbs and start building a life where love isn't begged for. It's given freely and fully. When we talk about breadcrumbing, we're not just talking about relationships that fall short. We're talking about the quiet ways we convince ourselves to settle, the quiet ways we forget our own worth, and the quiet ways hope can turn into heartbreak. But what I want you to carry with you is this: you are not meant to survive on crumbs. You are meant to be fully seen, fully valued, and fully loved. We've walked through how breadcrumbing hooks us with unpredictability, how it traps us in false hope, how it slowly erodes our sense of self, how change can never be forced from the outside, and how courage calls us to step away from crumbs altogether. None of these truths are easy. They ask us to face discomfort, to grieve what could have been, and to risk the unknown. But they also open the door to freedom. Because here's the gift on the other side. When you refuse to settle for crumbs, you create the possibility of a life where you no longer chase, no longer shrink, no longer wait. Instead, you stand fully in your worth. You choose relationships that nourish rather than deplete, and you finally sit at the table of love and belonging that was always meant for you.